Let's talk about 9 things that plant experts do that you don't. Light. Plant experts always make sure that there's adequate light in their home for the plants that they're growing. If their home is not well lit, doesn't have as much natural light as is needed for the plants to thrive, they have grow lights. These are some of the plants in my home, and in order for them to thrive, I've provided grow lights. These are some grow bulbs that I have. I've got another one back here. I have a number of grow lights dotted all over my house where I've got my plants. There's another one here. There's another one back there. I've got them all over the place. The reason I have these lights is the lighting in my home is not the best. And in order for my plants to actually make the food that they need, to utilize the nutrients that I've provided, they need light. Plants need light in order to photosynthesize, and photosynthesis is the process that plants use to make food and so that they can grow. If the light in your home is not sufficient enough, if it's not adequate, your plants will not do as well as they could do if they had enough light. So grow lights are really important. I've got a video where I set up some of the grow lights in my home. Click on the link above and that'll take you to it. Humidity is another very, very important thing. Most of these plants that we grow in our homes come from tropical climates, and tropical climates have high levels of humidity. Depending on what kind of home you live in, the humidity in your home could be anything from 20%, 30%, quite low. Most of these plants require slightly higher humidities than that. If the humidity in your home is not as it should be, you need to supplement that. And a very easy way to do that is to use a humidifier. Plant experts have humidifiers in their homes to raise the humidity. I have a humidifier running in the background there. This here is my humidifier, and you can see that vapor is going, and I'll have that humidifier running pretty much all day. And you can get all sorts of different humidifiers, all sorts of fancy ones. Some really clever people even make their own ones, and you've got this like mist all over the place. But of course, watch out for, mold in your home, that kind of thing. Just, pay attention to that. But a small humidifier like this, I normally have like 2 or 3 around because I have a lot of plants. That really does raise the humidity in your home, and your plants do a lot better for it. Plant experts fertilize their plants. This is the fertilizer I use for my plants. I don't call it fertilizer, I call it nutrient because it is a nutrient. So whether you're growing your plants in soil, you're using semi-hydroponics, whatever method you're using, you must feed your plants. You must feed your plants. Using semi-hydroponics is good because the plants are always in that nutrient solution. If you're using soil, you must remember to feed your plants. So whether you've got a specific regime that you follow, so whether you're doing it once a month, once every 2 months, whatever it is you do, just do not forget to feed them. And I'll address one thing here while I'm talking about feeding your plants. So this thing of saying that you're not going to fertilize your plants in the winter or in the autumn time, really, I like to take that with a pinch of salt, to be honest with you. My belief is if a plant is growing, it needs to be fed. And generally plants that are living outside, those tend to slow down a lot. But once you've got your plant in your home, the temperature is not as low. Things are not as bad as they would be if the plant was outside. So chances are that plant is actually still growing. And if the plant is still growing, please, please, please feed your plant. This is what I use. I feed my plants all the time. Another thing that plant experts use is a foliar spray. This is a foliar spray. So you're not only providing fertilizer and nutrients via the roots, you're spraying the leaves of the plants. And the plant is actually deriving nutrition from the leaves. So that's mine, and I'll just grab that and I'll just spray the leaves like that. And there, my plants actually have got nutrition from the roots and the leaves as well. Grab yourself a foliar spray if you haven't already. Another really important thing that plant experts do is they're probably mixing their own soil. They are not going to the store, picking up a bag of soil and potting up their plants in that. That's definitely not what they're doing. it's not what I did when I was still growing my plants in soil. I would mix up my soil based on the plant that I was growing. Most of my plants are aeroids. So I'd have a lovely aeroid mix that I would make. I'd have different components in it, things like bark, horticultural charcoal, perlite. You could add all sorts of things. I've got a video where I show how to make a very easy airy aeroid mix. Click on the link above and that'll take you to it. But definitely you need to have good soil, because if your soil, and I mean by soil I mean potting mix, if your potting mix is not optimal, then the roots won't be able to be healthy, and if the roots aren't healthy, then your plant is not healthy. So think about mixing your own potting mix. But if you're not using soil and if you're growing your plants in Leca, you need to prepare your Leca adequately. So that's the flip side of that. The flip side of preparing your own, making your own soil, is preparing your Leca properly. So that will mean making sure you clean your Leca as thoroughly as you possibly can, soaking your Leca in water for not less than 24 hours. And you can do this a few times actually. You can soak the Leca in water once, twice, 3 times, and that just makes sure that all the crud that's within the Leca is washed off. And once you're happy with that, soak your Leca in a nutrient solution. That really just makes it so much better. You have less efflorescence, less need for flushing, and your plants will really thrive. So you really need to prepare your medium, make your own soil, wash your Leca properly. One of the things that plant experts also make sure they always have all the tools that they need. Tools. Everyone who takes care of plants needs certain tools. For example, pots. These are heaps of pots that I've got. I've just got lots and lots of pots, because you never know when you're going to need to repot something. You're going a pot up, you're going a pot down, whatever it is you're doing, you need to have the pots available. You don't want to be having to go to the store every time you need something. I have things like sphagnum moss that just hangs around in my house, because I know I make a lot of moss poles and I know I'm extending moss poles all the time. I don't want to keep having to go to the store to pick up more sphagnum moss. But also with sphagnum moss, during COVID times, there was actually a shortage of sphagnum moss, and we were hunting around for sphagnum moss like it was gold. So since then, I always make sure to have a few boxes lying around just in case. It's not hoarding, it's called preparation. Simple things like greening pins, cable ties. Plant experts have their supplies. A workman is only as good as his tools, right? So make sure you've got the right tools. Pests. Plant experts are always, or at least try to be, on top of pests. So that will mean quarantining your plants. New plants that are coming into your home need to be quarantined. They're kept away from everybody else until they've proven that they don't have any pests on them. And just a preemptive treatment as well. Just wash your plant with some Castile soap and that will sort that out. And quarantine it, and if it's all good, then you can bring it into the fold. But also having a good supply of treatments that you would use to sort out pests is a good idea. So I've got something like that for spider mites. I've got my Confidor for thrips and all sorts of things. I've got my rose gun, I've got fungus guns, I've got my Castile soap, I've got my alcohol. So just having these things around makes it easier for you to actually be on top of things. So as you're walking around, looking at your plants, hang on, you see something, right, get that, treat it, you're on top of it right there and then. You're not having to think, right, I got to go to the store tomorrow to fix that. You're on it right there and then. Plant experts start off with a good plant specimen, and I'm not trying to bag on smaller plants or plants that don't look as good, but really it's just so much easier if you start with a lovely looking plant to end up with a lovelier looking plant than if you start with a smaller plant that's got teeny tiny leaves and is struggling to stay alive. It'll take you a lot longer to get that going. This is my Philodendron Majestic. It came with that And I think that, and these are the 2 new leaves that have come since it's been in my care, and there's another new leaf coming there. Am I happy with this plant? No. I think this plant was a freebie, or it was not so expensive, so I got it. Do I regret buying this plant? Yes, because it is so tiny. Look at those leaves. This is a plant that I would almost call a waste of a moss pole, honestly. It's going to take a really long time for these leaves to become big, majestic leaves. You know, the majestics that you know, it's just going to take a really long time. What would have been great is if I'd gotten a majestic that's already, you know, decent sized leaves, maybe the size of my hand. Then by the time it gets to the top of the moss pole, I've got a good size, a decent looking plant. So that's what I mean. If you start with a decent looking plant, you'll end up with a much lovelier looking plant in the end. And to be honest with you, there is no shame in wanting a plant that's looks nicer and bigger. You waste less time, honestly, less resources, less time. You get that bang for your buck immediately. So I, for one, I'm actually looking for another majestic. I will get another majestic and start my majestic pole again with that new plant. I might keep this plant on, you know, just so it gets a bit bushier, but I don't know. I might give it away. I'll see how I go. But definitely starting with a good plant is the way to go. Plant experts control the temperature in their homes. They control the temperature where the plants are living because, as I said before, these plants, most of them are tropical plants. They love to live in warm places. Now, I don't know about where you live, but it gets pretty cold in Melbourne, and plant experts have heaters, they've got controlled rooms, and they keep their plants moist. I know one plant guy who's got like a whole room and he's constantly got a heater going on in there and his plants look amazing. But of course, you can't get that if your plants are freezing. I would love to heat up my home like that. I generally don't. I just, you know, keep my home. The most it'll get up to is about 22 degrees and that's it. I can't do any more than that. Pick your battles, but that's the ideal thing to do. If you can keep your plants warm, that would be great. Another way of keeping your plants warm is to use a heat mat. That's a very simple way of doing things. This here is my propagation station area, and I have on here some of my propagations and some of my seedlings. This is a heat mat here. That's a little plant that I transferred from soil to Leca, and I've just got it sitting on the heat mat just to give it that zhuzh. These are some seedlings I've got in here on my heat mat. I've got some propagations here. This is a very easy way of providing warmth for your plants, for your propagations, for your cuttings and so on. I've also got on here some grow lights. So these are my little stick grow lights that take care of my plants that are living here. So my propagations, my plants that I've just transferred from soil to Leca live here. They have light, heat, and this, for example, this is a little propagation dome. I've got some, it's a propagation, germination, whatever it is you, so I've got some seedlings on there. So it's humid, it's warm, and it's got lots of light. So these are some of the things that plant experts have in their home. So it's not just a matter of just having plants. There are a few things that happen in the background that you may not know about. This back here is my grow tent. That is another thing that plant experts have. They will control the climate around their plants. Some of their special plants like anthuriums, calatheas, plants that need a lot more light, a lot more humidity, temperature controlled, live in special places. They're not just exposed to the elements in the home. So it'll either be a grow tent like this one, or it'll be a special cabinet like an IKEA Millsboro cabinet. Those are very, very popular. Lots of people adapt all sorts of cabinet and make them mini greenhouses with lights, fans, all sorts of fancy gizmos, heat mats, and that is really replicating that tropical environment so that plant can be as absolutely gorgeous as it can. So we'll take a sneak peek into my grow tent and I'll show you some of the special plants that live in there, and then you really understand how Some plants just really need to be in a special place like that. That's my tent. I've got my light up there. I've got some shelving there with some of my plants, and I'll take you down and show you what plants I've got living down there. So in that spot right there is my Calathea orbifolia. That's a really, really special plant for me, and I keep it in there just because I can control the humidity in there. I've got a humidifier right in the corner there. I've got some of my variegated Hoyas living in here as well. Because of the light, I love how the light keeps them just looking ever so peachy and as variegated as I need them to be. Some of the Hoyas that I'm transitioning from soil to Leca, and I just want to mollycoddle a little bit, like that one. That's my Hoya Thailand. That is still living in my grow tent. Special people that live in my grow tent, things like this. That is my Anthurium clarinervium, and that is a new leaf there. So that gets to live in my grow tent. That's a new plant that I've got. And I've got this other one here. That is my Hoya Griffith. Look at that. That's a new leaf there. That's doing so well. So there's some plants that just do better in the grow tent, at least initially. That is my Calathea Thai Beauty. That is doing really well in there and just really looking forward to growing in spring. So that's the other side of my grow tent there. This is my spider plant that has just gone through some rehab and really getting back to life at the moment. So you can see it's gorgeous leaves coming through there. There's none of that brown tipping going with the new leaf. So that's doing really well. If you haven't seen the video where I rehabbed this plant, just click on the link above and that'll take you to it. I've got living in here as well my little marble queen. That is just the most glorious marble queen I've ever seen. It is so white, and I keep it in here purely because of the light, and that's what's keeping it looking as white as this. So it's just a really good space to keep some very special plants that need conditions to be just so. And on that shelf, I've got more and more anthuriums. I'm getting more anthuriums in my collection, and I'm really loving how they're coming up. That's just going so well. Look at that one. There's a little new leaf coming there that is going to be spectacular. That's a new leaf that's come through. Loving my grow tent. There's no secrets. That's what plant gurus do. A few additional things. It's not just about watering and fertilizing. There's just so much more that goes into taking care of amazing, beautiful plants. And now that you've seen this, do not forget to download the free ebook that I have. You'll find that in the description below. You must go and watch the video where I tell you how you can grow big, gorgeous plants in your own home.